Okay, today's lesson is going to be what I call a double hitter. We're going to be tackling uh, the concept of Parshas Pinchas, the 17th of Tammuz, and repairing the breach. I have a subject matter that is so important for this period of time in our history, not only in the United States, but in every country of the world. And this period of time is a great reminder for us all as humanity to examine the lessons that Israel had to endure through its history to come to this place and then them still celebrate this idea of the 17th of Tammuz. The 17th of Tammuz actually starts today. Actually, it starts is the day fast, the fast day, and it lasts for a couple of weeks. And many of you guys already know what the details of it is and what it's about. And we'll kind of go through a little bit, but I want to pull it all together and look at Parshas Pinchas and the 17th of Tammuz, see the connection between the two, and also to begin to learn the lessons from it. If you'll remember from last week's Parsha, the prophet Balaam, takes and makes a pronouncement over Israel to curse them, and he can't curse them for some reason. He only gives them blessing. We had great lessons from many different rabbis about bringing blessings of curses on the Jewish people, and it turns into a blessing. But in that discourse, the prophet said the way that you could destroy Israel is to have your daughters, have the Moabite women go and have relationship with the Jewish men, the Israelite men, and there you'll destroy the foundation of who they are. You'll completely negate them. And so they came up with a clever idea, and we have the story of Pinchas. What happens is the Moabite women came and enticed the princes of the tribes of Israel. One of them is very prominent, and he marches this Moabite woman right in front of Moshe into his own tent to have a relationship with the woman. Now, their sexual relationship was intimately tied into idolatrous worship. So, in some aspect, was calling the men of Israel to indulge themselves not only in sexual immorality, but idolatry, two major violations of not only the Jewish law, but the laws that apply to the nations. And so I've wondered what really makes a civilization collapse? Do they fall apart in a single day? Do they suddenly wake up and all of a sudden decide we're just going to abandon all of our moral framework? We're going to abandon all of our normal operating procedures and let's just abandon it all and see what happens. That's not the case, obviously. We know this. Rome didn't fall in a day. We've heard that over and over. They do begin to crumble. Societies begin to crumble long before anyone notices it. And as I go along in this presentation, I want you to think of your own society, our own world that we live in, and see the signs that are there and challenge ourselves to do something to correct or to repair that. I want to introduce you to one of the most important dates of the Jewish calendar. And I'm associating the Parshat Pinchas to this because in Parshas Pinchas, the Israelite people were in the wilderness. God had been covering them with a cloud by day and fire by night. They had manna from heaven. They had the very presence of God in their midst. They were living life large, no problems. But there was a chink in their armor, And it seemed that the false prophet, this prophet that came to curse Israel, had a little insight that said that if you can get them to commit sexual immorality and idolatry, you'll destroy them. Well, for the Jewish people, this day marks really the beginning of 3 week period of mourning of the calamities that have befallen the Jewish people, the destruction of the holy temples in Jerusalem. But while this day is rooted in Jewish history, the lesson still is very universal. It affects us all. In fact, the message of the 17th of Tammuz is more relevant today than I feel than ever before. Whether you're Jewish or you Noahide, this day teaches us a profound lesson of truth that great disasters begin with small breaches. And the second caveat to this is important to remember, and redemption begins when these breaches are repaired. So let's explore what happened on this day and what it can teach us in our own lives and how it can help sort of guide us to wisdom in the days ahead. The 17th of Tammuz, the Mishnah teaches the tragedies occurred on this period of time on the 17th of Tammuz. First, Moses shattered the tablets. Why? Because he witnessed the golden calf. The second is the daily temple sacrifices ceased during the Babylonian siege because there was no animals to bring as an offering. Third, the walls of Jerusalem were breached before the destruction of the second temple. Fourth, there was a great story that is often remembered of the Torah scroll being burned publicly in Jerusalem. And fifth, an idol was placed in the center of the Holy Temple. Now, at first glance, these seem to be sort of separate events, happened over a period of time, but our sages saw a common thread that weaves into all of these incidences. Each event represents a breach in the relationship between God and humanity. And when I say those words, you realize, wow, we've seen this before. God and humanity, there was a breakdown between God and humanity before the flood. They were given the 6 laws given to Adam, and they were passed down, but man became worse and worse. Hamas, chaos, filled all of society before the flood. Something happened, and there were breaches within the wall of the moral fabric of the 6 Noahide laws. And mankind got to a place that God decided it's time to destroy all of the wickedness in the world. Now, when we think about this, the tablets were broken, the temple service was stopped, Jerusalem's defenses fell, the Torah was desecrated, and idolatry entered into the place of where the presence of God was meant to dwell. You see, each one of these tragedies reflects a wall being broken, a boundary being crossed, a sacred connection being weakened. When most people think about the breach in Jerusalem's walls, they imagine an ancient military event, one catastrophic event. But Jewish wisdom sees something quite different. And I think that we'd all agree the physical walls fell because the spiritual walls had already weakened. When I think of societies around the world, even cities within this country, in which seems to be chaos that rules the day, crime out the roof, murder, child kidnapping, and child sex abuse. You go through the list, you look at these societies like, what has happened in these societies? It's not because just one day they became that way. Spiritually, something has been completely damaged or weakened, and therefore society is experiencing destruction. The sages teach that destruction begins internally before it even becomes visibly externally. If we are seeing the signs of societal breakdown within our own country or within other countries around the world, that degradation took place a long time before what we see visibly. Something began to break and fall apart. This is why I believe that what we're doing today is the most important thing that we could ever do. And that is, as individuals, as a community, begin to grow, begin to develop our own sense of focus and correction, our, our moral intent, our intent to be godly souls in this world and to influence the world to be a better place. You see, a city falls physically only after it begun to fall morally and spiritually. The principle applies to nations, it applies to families, as you and I as individuals, it applies. The breach in Jerusalem walls actually serves as a mirror. We need to ask ourselves, where are the breaches in our own lives? Where are the breaches in our local society? If we see things are breaking down in society, we should be asking the fundamental question, what are the breaches? I'm afraid to tell you that the breaches are not always what you think it is. Let me explain. When a society sees that crime rate is going up, they immediately want to blame the police officers. They want to blame the economy. They want to blame lack of good education. None of those are the reason why those things happen. They're just what I call distractions to keep a society from focusing on what is the most important. You see, what creates the problem is something that has been neglected at its core. The boundaries have been neglected. What values have been weakened should be the questions that have been asked. As a society, if we're seeing crime go out the roof, a society should be asking not whether it's the police officer's fault or education is the fault or wealth inequality is the fault. The question should be asked is, what have we done in a society to our moral proclivity that has allowed us to go to this place? Now, the lesson in the golden calf is something pretty important for us to mention. The first tragedy remembered on this day is the breaking of the tablets. Now, something remarkable happened. The Israelites did not reject God entirely. It wasn't like they said, we don't believe in the one creator, universal God, creator of the universe. Instead, they attempted to replace the invisible God with something tangible. And notice the word I carefully select, controllable. They want a God that they can manage. A golden calf, something they could see, something they could touch, something they could actually manage, move from this place or the other, or put it higher when they wanted to put it higher, or put it lower when they want to put it lower. You see, every generation has its own golden calves. Our generation has its own golden calf. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's political power, sometimes it's fame, sometimes it's technology. Many times it's worship of self, of ego. The challenge is not merely avoiding idols of gold. The challenge is recognizing anything that takes place of the Creator that should be at the center of our life. The 17th of Tammuz asked each one of us what sits on the throne of your and my heart. What does it mean for those of the nations who are not required to fast on the 17th of Tammuz? They're not even required to think about it. And that's why we're having this lesson today that will be put on the internet later on. We should be asking, why should Noahides care about this fast day? Well, the answer is pretty clear. It's a universal message that affects every human being. Noahides are not obligated, as I said, to fast, but the wisdom contained within these days belong to all of humanity. The 7 laws of Noah themselves is a system of moral boundaries. Every society that we look back over history that have fallen apart and completely been destroyed are societies that have taken those 7 laws, very simple boundaries, those 7 categories, and pushed them aside and began to seek their own desire and their own lust. Human society really depends on respect for life, respect for property, respect for marriage, respect for justice, respect for God's authority. Every one of these laws in the Sheva Mitzvot is a wall. It's a stone in the wall that is protecting civilization. You and I are part of buttressing up the walls of society. When those walls are honored, society flourishes. Look at societies around the world right now that are flourishing and doing well. These are societies who have a moral framework. Are they perfect? No, of course not. Do they make every decision perfect? No, they don't. Are there issues that could be resolved and made better? Yes. But generally, a society that is prospering and doing well are societies that have maintained that wall, have continued to repair the wall as it needed to be repaired. When these walls are breached, society begins to unravel. And I'm very concerned about our own country and about societies around the world that are starting to unravel, but people are focusing on the wrong thing. They're looking at the illusion, they're looking at the distraction rather than the fundamental principle that the 17th of Tammuz is teaching us right now. And that fundamental principle is this: a society cannot last and cannot prosper unless it is in alignment with the natural order that God gave mankind to follow, period. The destruction of Jerusalem reminds us that no civilization can survive its moral foundations when its moral foundations are neglected. Now, let's look at something that's important. Sometimes we're concerned about the big thing. You know, if an army came around Jerusalem and had its catapults and it's throwing its huge stones at the walls and destroying it, yes, that's bad. The problem is not the big events. The danger is the small compromises. One of the greatest lessons of this period is that collapse really happens overnight. We said this earlier. The wall did not disappear in a moment. The first developed crack, for example, then a breach, then a collapse. The same is true about our spiritual lives. A small compromise becomes a habit, and a habit becomes a pattern, and patterns become one's destiny. This is why King Solomon penned these words: little foxes that spoil the vineyard. Remember this? It's the little foxes could have this massive, beautiful vineyard that is out there, but them digging at the roots can destroy the vineyard. Most people do not lose their faith in one day. Most people don't destroy relationships and marriages in a day. Most societies don't collapse in one day. It starts with small breaches, left unrepaired, left discarded. The simple lesson is this: repair the cracks before they become a catastrophe. These 3 weeks of the 17th of Tammuz are weeks of hope and redemption, not mourning and destruction. Yet the story does not end with destruction. Obviously, we know that. One of the most beautiful teachings in Judaism is these days of mourning are destined to become days of joy. Now, the prophet Zechariah, my favorite, foretold that the fasts associated with the destruction of Jerusalem will one day become feasts and festivals of gladness. Now, think about that. That historically, the days of mourning for these periods of time of great tragedy happening in Israel and to the Jewish people, they'll one day be turned into great joy. Why? Because the purpose of remembering destruction is not despair. It's transformation. The breach exists so that it can be repaired. Do you have a breach in your life? Do you have something that you realize it's a chink in your armor? Don't despair. It's there to show you that there needs to be repair. The exile exists so that redemption can emerge. There wouldn't be redemption without an exile. The darkness exists so that the light can be revealed. This message speaks not only to the Jewish people, but to all of humanity. The prophets envision a future where all nations recognize the Creator. The world that we know it will be filled with justice like we've never known it before. A world filled with peace, a world filled with the knowledge of God as waters cover the sea. The journey toward the future begins with repairing our own walls. So let's look at some practical application for this time, the 17th of Tammuz, and with looking at the story of Pinchas. Consider yourself or consider asking these four fundamental questions. What are the weak places in your spiritual life? Is it a lack of intent and study, a lack of purposeful connection to Hashem? What are the small compromises that need attention before it grows larger? Think about the small compromises that you have developed, I have developed. And how can I strengthen my commitment to the laws of God? And what can I do to bring more awareness of God in the world, to my neighbors, to my friends? You see, the answer may reveal the very breaches that needs to be repaired. And every repair, no matter how small, contributes to the redemption of the world. You see, as we leave this lesson today and we go into the Shabbat, we're going to remember that repair that we do in ourselves helps to repair the world. The 17th of Tammuz is far more than a date on the Jewish calendar. It is a reminder that walls are built one stone at a time, and they are repaired one stone at a time. For the Jewish people, it marks the beginning of the season, a reflection of mourning. For the Noahides, it offers a powerful annual opportunity to examine the moral and spiritual foundation of our own lives. The breach of Jerusalem's walls is not merely an ancient history, something that we can tell a story about, but it's a reminder that this message is for this generation. Protect what is sacred, strengthen what is weak, repair what is broken, and help prepare the world for the day when all humanity will serve the one Creator together. May we all merit to be builders of this strong wall and to build a better world. Shalom. That concludes my shiur. Let's do a little discussion. I would like to pick your mind and get some ideas from you about some of the things that came across to your mind during this discussion. Who would like to be first? Okay, no discussion, then I guess we go.
Well, it seems like, Rod, the little cracks that start, we're not even aware of it sometimes that they're starting.
No.
And to, take preemptive measures to stop it before it gets too big. It's just, I know in the, is it in the third paragraph of the Shema where it talks about don't follow after your heart and your eyes? And in the second paragraph, beware lest you be seduced.
Right.
And you turn astray. Well,
Right.
a seduction is very, very subtle. You're not
Yes.
even aware that it's happening. And so it may be happening in our lives and we're not even aware of it yet.
Correct. Correct. You know, I put it on the same line. I guess the lesson that I learned from my health journey is that my health became progressively worse over years. And it's like all of a sudden you wake up and realize what happened? Like, how did I get so bad off? And I realized that it's because you let things go. It's just easy to do. And we all do those things. And you are right that um, it's easy to not see the small things. But see, this is why I think that our effort in spiritual alignment is important. That every day our intent needs to be set on examination and openness to hear from Hashem and the ability to recognize those little things that need to be corrected. And it takes work. I'm going to tell you, I had an image that came to my mind here a while back. I don't know if you, well, at our age, threading a needle is a joke, right? You're trying to put a little thing, and you can't even see the hole in the needle. But I had the image of trying to thread an alignment with Hashem is like threading a needle with a rope, and the needle's 10 feet away. You understand? It's almost impossible. The point is this is to accomplish the alignment that we need, it requires us to have a very close inspection of the destination, the hole, the needle itself. Now, my age, my wife and I pull a magnifying glass with our reading glasses. Do you guys do that? I'm telling so the magnifying glass with the reading glasses, and then we're kind of going, and the other person has to hold it while they're trying to put it in. Anyway, the point is this is it's about examination. It's about getting close to the target. The target is you and me. Like we need to seriously every day ask Hashem to open our eyes, to see what our weaknesses are. And let me say this, we all are aware of this, that the best uh, indicator, the best GPS, the best compass is usually our spouse or our fellow relationships. Because many people, like especially our spouse, somebody close to you, can point out things. And it's not because they're pointing out like, you need to fix this or that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the little things that happen that cause you to go away and go, why did that just happen? Why did that person just say that? Well, are they seeing something about me that I don't see? Do you see how this works? This is like going to the store and the clerk responds to you a certain way. And you go, well, why did they act like that? Like, and then immediately, if you're normal, you would go, well, that person was just rude, right? Oh, that person was just whatever. But we should be asking ourselves, what did I do or how did I present myself that caused this individual to, to, to act that way with me? Right. I was like, everything should be a sign. Sandy, go ahead.
Well, you made me think, maybe to help us is it's important to have an accountability partner.
Yes.
Like in AA and NA, they have a sponsor, and when they feel they're going and a person's trying to stay on the right path, and they feel like they're going to go off that path, they'll call that sponsor to help them get back on track.
Right.
And so maybe apply that principle to us. If we have an accountability partner, somebody we really trust that knows us, and that we would feel comfortable saying, I'm really tempted to go do this, help me stay on the right track. Or that
Right.
person could say, I see you drifting off, let's talk about it.
Right.
Have developed that relationship with somebody that would feel comfortable saying that to me, or I feel comfortable going to them saying I need help.
Well, that goes without saying. You're absolutely right. No person takes seriously their effort in their walk with Hashem without thinking you can do it alone. You can't. You need other people around you. And you're right. Accountability part is very important. Anybody else have any input on what I said that could bring some more enlightenment to the subject? Mike?
Um, you know, reading about zealots, I've been hearing recently more zealotry coming out of people people saying things that in America here, politically mostly, but that I've never heard before. And I think with zealotry, it has a passion, and we have a mood and we have a passion. But zealotry seems to me that mixes passion with a fear. And these people fear the government, they fear the police, they fear this, they fear that. And the biggest fear that they have, I think, is they fear that what they believe in, what they stand for, those values can't win. They can't win. So they tear down or speak against or all these other institutions because who they are, their ideals can't change anybody, can't do anything. So they react that way. As people of faith, we don't need to fear. I think what happened to Pinchas here and his match with Elijah, that when all was said and done, Pinchas just went to be a priest under his father. Kind of a small act. When Elijah heard his famous small, still voice, all he did was put up the mantle on Elijah. Elisha anointed Jehu, and he went on his way to do other things. Kind of small acts. And I think these small acts is how we, number one, don't become zealots, and how we can overcome zealotry, even in our society. The second half of this Parsha talks about Sabbaths and holidays. And I think there's a key there, not that we, or even today, not that we have to celebrate in this way or that way. That's not my point. My point is, in Judaism, there's things yearly, there's things weekly, there's things daily, the daily prayers. And I think for us as B'nai Noach, it's the daily small things that we do, to kind of piggyback on what you said, those consistent, constant things, the prayer we say every day, the Torah study that we do privately every day. These things give us the strength to face the zealots head on.
Yes.
That we could face these people. We could face all the nonsense that we hear in society coming to us as a faith-based people, which would be like are. So Pinchas itself might have had a fear. He might have feared that, and Elijah too, there's no one left. No one's going to stand up for this. There's no one out there. And God had to calm them down and say, no, there's many there. We are many. We have the faith. We don't get the publicity of the airtime and podcast, whatever that kind of thing is.
Right.
But I think our daily walk with Hashem alleviates us from having any fear of what we see coming.
And I agree with you 100%. I look, if anybody within our sphere of righteous and the nations are operating off of fear, I have to question whether they're truly anchored in their emunah, their faith and trust in God, because ultimately we're not, I mean, yeah, we live in this society, but we're not being pulled around by our hair with every fear and trepidation that exists in society. It just doesn't affect us like that. I find it amazing, and it's across the board. All of you guys are the same way. Though you're concerned about it, and you're concerned about your society, you're more concerned about what you're doing and how you are trying to live to be a more righteous human being. And I do believe that that's repairing the breaches in a moral fabric of a society. So, good point, Mike. Good point. Who else? Anybody else? Joey mentioned maybe one way to think of it is how when something is newly created, you check it for imperfections, and by remembering reality, reality is consistently being created rapid fire by Hashem is possibly a way to examine more closely. That's a very good point. Very good point. We can't. It's hard work to stay on target. I don't know of a single athlete that accomplishes gold medal by sitting on a couch in his underwear eating Cheetos. It just doesn't happen. No spiritual giant comes out of isolation, depression, and ego. Just doesn't happen. We're living an amazing time, guys. Redemption is coming. It is coming. The whole world's going to know. But we need to stay course. We need to remind people that are out there pulling their hair out in society, thinking, what's happening? The society's falling apart. We're going to have communism. We're going to have this. We're going to have that. Tell them, no, focus on what's important. We'll get to the right place. Anybody else before we go? Sandy?
Yeah, one more comment. Mike brought up Elijah, and the rabbis have told us that Pinchas and Elijah are the same person. And, I like to make connections between things. So this may be off target. So tell me, in the Parsha and the one before, Pinchas was the only one who stood up and did something when this episode was happening. Elijah thought he was the only one who was standing up for God. So I kind of see a connection. Both times they were Elijah thought he was the only one. Pinchas was the only one who stood up. So don't know if there's any connection there or not. But
no, I most definitely see the connection. It's interesting because Elijah thought he was the only one, but you realize how desperate he was when he was seeing his own society turn to idolatry at that level. He wasn't dealing with foreign gods. I mean, foreign people. He was dealing with his own people. His own people were doing that. And it puts you in a desperate place. But I do believe that Mike is right, that most people who thinks they're zealots are just fearful people. They're not zealots at all. Does that make sense? Zealots in a righteous way. They're just fearful people that want to react and destroy something.
Yes, Sandy, there is a big connection that the Haftorah on this portion is about Elijah. Is about what happened at Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal and Jezebel and him going into the desert, and then what he did after. So there is a definite connection. How that works, I don't know, but there's a big connection. These two men have. I wrote down maybe 5 or 6 different things that they are connected together with, and it's pretty interesting.
What were some of those things?
Well, they say that they first thought they were alone. No one else was reacting. They both, the rabbis being out, they both had a fear that maybe I am not only the last, but no one else is going to do anything. They both could have been killed. Zimri's people were not happy at all. If God didn't intervene, Pinchas might have been killed. They both went on to do things. They both needed peace. That was another one. They both needed peace because of maybe the fears that they had or what they thought might be happening. If I don't do this, this is going to happen. They both needed a peace. Elijah was alone in the desert, and Pinchas had a priesthood, a covenant of peace. So both men needed peace in a certain way. So those are some of the things just off the top that came, how these two people did similar things and needed similar things from God.
Yeah, it is interesting, Mike, because we all know that societies have been saved because someone decided to stand up in the gap and to do something about it. I guess my premise is, let's not wait until we have to commit some type of martyrdom to achieve the greater good. Let's make the corrections now, the simple ones, the easy ones. Let's put the stones back in the wall. And I think that's where we're at right now, is that as a society, we're getting ready to go and have to make a choice. And there are those in society that feel like that it's so desperate, we need to try to destroy or get rid of the distraction. The distraction's not the problem. The problem is the moral proclivity of society. And that's where we need to go. That's what we need to be reminding people to do. It's not about left or right. It's not about politics. It's about the moral fabric of this society. Now, mind you, there are some in the political spectrum that I would say absolutely have a system of morality that's completely different, is antithetical to the Torah. That's a problem. But we've got to be the ones that stand up and say that and take the risk of getting killed in the process. Anybody else before we go? Lisa, it's good to see you. Joey, Celeste, Alex, Peggy, Sandy, Crystal, Linda. Guys, appreciate you. No class tonight at 7 because Rabbi is on the way to New York. His next class will be Sunday morning at 10 a.m. So hope to see you guys all there early, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And okay, Mary Lou's still here. I thought she left the room. I was going to check on her. Mary, you okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, just checking on you. I didn't know if you fell asleep or
No, I just have rollers in my hair.
rollers in your hair. Well, Mike
Yeah,
has rollers in his hair, and it
well,
should
I know,
matter.
but he looks good with them.
Okay, guys, I love you dearly, my brothers and sisters, and we'll see you Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Shabbat Shalom.